With Botman, Maddison, Saka and Chilwell all being flagged, you might be considering a free hit. This video has got you covered. Now, my goalkeeper for this team is Kaminski of Luton. When you look at DraftHound's top expected points for goalkeepers in Game Week 7, Kaminski comes out in first place. It's more than just the fact he's got a double game week, though. I think he could conceivably keep a clean sheet against either Everton or Burnley, albeit Everton looking a little bit better over their last couple of fixtures. However, Burnley, well, they're not looking very good at all, in my opinion. Kaminski, regardless of whether he does keep a clean sheet or not, he's averaging over 3 saves per game in the league. So regardless of whether he keeps clean sheets, he should get saves bonus at least in one of the games. And I wouldn't expect him to concede too many goals if he did concede. So the minus points I don't think are going to be there for this week. I definitely think he's worth a 1-week punt on a free hit in Game Week 7. I don't see many goalkeepers that could potentially match his points. You think realistically, right? I know this could be famous last words, but Everton and Burnley are probably not going to score more than 2 goals against him, which means he's not likely to get too many minus points. If he picks up saves bonus, then that's a little bit more than the 4 points floor that I think he's got. And if he keeps a clean sheet, he could get a double-digit return. So Kaminski, I think, is worth going for. In my defence then, I've gone for Trippier, Bell and Schär. Now, you don't have to start with Bell. There's a bench option who I think is perfectly decent to take his place. I quite like taking the risk on the Luton double game week. I think if you're free hitting in Game Week 7, simply you don't have to own but Luton assets after this game week. So for me, if you're free hitting, it makes sense to pile in on the Luton players. Everton Burnley, as we said, is a good double game week and it's relatively low risk. It's just 1 week that you have to have them in your team for. Trippier and Schär, they're amongst the top defenders for expected points as well. You can see here. Botman is actually higher than Schär, but given Botman's injury risk at the moment, I think it's just safe to say that Schär is probably a better option to start with against Burnley. So I've gone for him. Trippier, we obviously know the attacking upside he got. 3 assists against Sheffield United, and I think he could do equally well against Burnley again. Now, the midfield, I think, is really exciting with this team, and I think you can easily fit in players that not a lot of other players have in the game that I think are actually ideal to pick for this week. The likes of Jared Bowen and Anthony Gordon are not very high owned, and the thing is with Anthony Gordon, he's on 4 yellow cards, so regardless of whether he gets his 5th yellow card, if you're free hitting in Game Week 7, you can have him in your team against Burnley, and then he doesn't have to be in it the week after if he does get a yellow card. So you completely take away that risk with Gordon. And at 5.6 million, he really allows you to fit some fantastic other assets in your team. Jared Bowen's got Sheffield United. We saw what happened with Sheffield United against Newcastle. I think West Ham, not quite as good as Newcastle. However, they're still scoring a good amount of goals. And Jared Bowen looks to be back in form that we saw of him a couple of seasons ago. So I think he's a fantastic option. I think Bruno Fernandes is the best Man United midfielder. I've said this since the start of the season. Rashford actually has higher expected points than him for this week. However, just with the penalties, the guaranteed starts, 90 minutes, I just think Bruno Fernandes ticks all the boxes. Salah and Son, I don't need to say much about Salah. His returns this season have been absolutely fantastic and absolutely consistent. Heung-min Son, it's a bit of a risk. There are obviously plenty of other midfielders at this price point as well that you might fancy. For example, Marcus Rashford, who I did mention. You could well go for Rashford instead. That's completely fine. However, with Son, I just think the way he plays, running in behind, he can cause the Liverpool defence some real problems. Tottenham, certainly under Conte, and I don't think, obviously Postecoglou's playing a different style, but I don't think you can say Tottenham are no longer a counter-attacking side. I think they got a fantastic counter-attacking setup still, and I think he could do really well against Liverpool. Yes, I've gone for Carlton Morris up front, and I think if you're on a free hit, it absolutely makes sense to do so. It's the same story with the defender and the goalkeepers, really. It's low risk, you only have to have them for 1 week, and then you just get rid of them and go back to your normal team that probably doesn't have them in. Morris, he's guaranteed to play both games, in my opinion, providing he doesn't get injured. He's going to be taking the penalties, and his non-penalty XG is not great, don't get me wrong, but I think hedging him against other strikers in the game for the game week at the moment, the likes of Ollie Watkins, for example, has got Brighton. He could be a good option, but I don't think he is going to necessarily score as well as Morris will. Considering the fact, of course, Morris's literal floor points this week are 4, and that's the equivalent of like your striker getting an assist. It's only 1 point off. Say Watkins gets an assist, that's 5 points. Morris doesn't do anything but just starts the 2 games. He gets 4. So I think if you're on a free hit, it's a low risk, decent shout. And then Haaland, obviously he's in the team. He's the top player for expected points in Game Week 7, so he's the captain. And the team as a whole is here. So the bench, it's not really much to talk about. Turner, you could have any other goalkeeper in there. You've got 0.6 million in the bank to play with. If you don't fancy Kaminsky, you can obviously replace him with someone else as well. Zuma was the defender I thought was a good backup to Bell. Sheffield United, absolutely horrendous at defending set pieces. We all saw what Newcastle did against them from set pieces in Game Week 6. Zuma is a really big aerial threat. I'd actually suggest he's better in the air than the Newcastle defenders were. And they've got James Ward-Prowse taking the free kicks. So if there was ever a game week for Zuma to score, it would be against Sheffield United. Bayer, he's just going to start both games for Burnley, basically, so I've stuck him on my bench. Then Archer, 4.5 million striker, the best at that price point, and that's the team. All right, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you are playing your free hit, let me know below in the comments if you think this team is any good. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, right? Because FPL is all about different opinions. If we all had the same opinion, we'd all have the same team and the game would be really boring. So yeah, let me know what your plans are this week. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating and subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just there. And I will catch you in the next one.